Hello and welcome to Is This England, a show where we talk about old and new England games and ask just how England was this.
Today, we're looking ahead to the final game of the group stage for England against Wales after a draw against the USA.
You may be a stranger, that's what time can do. Baby, you mean everything to me. Darling, there's
A draw against the USA. No
Doesn't sound,
adjectives.
doesn't sound so bad, does it now? When we all look back and we're all calm and sober after our Friday night, we got over it.
How about if I prefaced that with a disappointing draw against the USA, or a
Yeah,
boring
go on.
draw against the USA, or
Snore draw,
a snore, a shocker? Yeah.
a snore
I don't.
shocker.
Well, let's have a look at it then. England played the USA on Friday night. We were both down the pub. And then about 2 minutes before kickoff, you went, "Oh, it's going to be like the Scotland game with the Euros," which we watched down the pub together as well. And lo and behold, it was exactly the same.
Yeah, same outcry, but I think we're level-headed enough to kind of know that that was a bad thing. It wasn't a great evening. I think in terms of watching the football, I think it was just for me. It's just chalking it up to you never win all your games in your tournament. USA
No,
were very much up for it and all that kind of stuff, which we'll talk about now. But yeah, disappointing and overall, wasn't it?
yeah, I think so. I think the reaction to it has been quite strong.
Hmm.
Obviously, there's a lot now riding on the Wales game, but my prediction before the USA game was comfortable winning every group game, and
Yeah.
I don't feel like that now. Let's start the deeper analysis of it then by looking at England. Um, I guess maybe working through the team. I don't think Pickford had anything to do. So you
No,
can't.
no. And I was looking at the BBC lineup, so I was just like, who came off when and all that kind of stuff, just trying to remind myself. And Jordan Pickford had got like a below average six rating. And I was
Mm,
like, even for someone who's not done something, everyone has gone in so strong on a man who had nothing to do, of just like rubbish.
yeah, the fullbacks for this game were same as the first. It was the same unchanged 11. Trippier and Shaw, and I thought both players didn't cover themselves in glory at all. It's quite a strange one, really, because you think of Trippier especially, and you think consistently good. I don't think I've ever seen him have a bad game for England, but it felt like he was getting beat. He was getting beat to the ball, and like just the attacking elements were there. And I think him and Shaw kind of mirrored each other.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Really, they didn't. It was not that either of them had any disasters, and I don't think there
No.
were any disasters as you look at the England team as a whole. Really, I don't think anybody was just like, "Oh my god, awful," all this kind of stuff. It just felt like no one ever quite got into the game. The tempo
Yeah,
was never quite there, and the only player that really has weirdly come away with any credit is Harry Maguire, which would have been
yeah,
low on the list of like everyone hating him and saying he shouldn't even be near the squad. And kind of like, I found a bit of pride just watching him and just being like, you know what, he's played very well. And even everyone, when we watched it in the pub, was just like, yeah, he's played well. As if like that
definitely.
they're
He was.
all also that they're also annoyed that he's the only one doing good.
Yeah, there was a lot of go on, slabhead. There's a lot of
Yeah,
that.
it was a lot back to like 2018 when he was more this like a player that really was taken to people's hearts because he didn't
Yeah,
play for one of the top clubs and he'd come up the hard way and he'd been to Euro 2016, I think it was, as a fan. And it was kind of back to those days of, oh yeah, Maguire, we like Maguire, don't we? And it's like, you've
yeah.
not been saying that for some time.
I definitely haven't, but I can't disagree. He played really well. He was our standout player, no doubt. John Stones probably just had the same game as a lot of people, and it kind of
Hmm.
not passed him by because he's a centre back and he got a clean sheet. That's good, but he's one that we can move on from quickly. If we look at the
Yeah.
midfield, then after the incredible start to the tournament for Jude Bellingham. He was subbed off, and you couldn't say that was an incorrect decision at the time, really. And a bit disappointing. You'd want him to get, you'd want him to grab a game like this by the scruff of the neck and kind of lead England. And like you say, him and Royce really never seem to get that foothold. I think looking
No.
back, you've got to say the USA, especially in that midfield area, were just on it.
Yeah, and first to everything. And I think we said the other day they've made this a derby game just because they probably don't play England a lot or the UK like British teams a lot, and actually on the superior side. Usually in sport they have kind of dominated whatever it is, and the rare occasion they do play an England-esque side. So they're going to be up for it a lot more, aren't they? And I think that was
Yeah,
quite evident. And also I think because of the Wales game that had gone before, where they were pegged back and maybe unfortunately, probably, I think they, from what I saw of it, they were probably the better team out of the two, but they just kind of let the game slip. They knew that they couldn't let England do that this time. And actually, you kind of look for USA. They've now got to beat Iran to go through. And Iran obviously had their great win over Wales that we saw the other day as well. So you kind of go, yeah, from the moment they knew they were going to have to be at this. And maybe that
mm.
just slightly changes things a little bit more. But kind of back to England with Bellingham, you kind of realise that, yeah, he is a 19-year-old at this point. And as with everything, you can't just put the hopes and dreams of a nation on one player, because I don't think that is what this England side is.
No.
But at the same time, you've just got to be careful with building these players up, coming up against experienced USA side really, who've kind of been there and done it on a lot of occasions. And you kind of look in centre midfield, if Bellingham is the one to come off, of who's going to come on and make a difference. And unfortunately, it's kind of seen as Henderson is that player, whether incorrectly or not, in terms of how England should play, whether that should be Foden that is coming on for that. I remember at the time we were talking and saying, I'd like to see England be a bit braver and go for the Foden that does that, even though he and Mount aren't going to be defensive players. It's going to be just left up to Rice, where Henderson will kind of do both jobs.
Yeah, Henderson was a strange one, a definite strange. I don't think. Well, I was going to say I don't think Southgate's ever going to sub Rice, except he did in the Euros final.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was probably a change was needed there with Bellingham. And Henderson came on and didn't do anything particularly wrong. It's just maybe not what we needed. But continuing with the midfield, I think the big controversy is the Mason Mount Phil Foden argument. Mason Mount Phil Foden, sorry, is now Jack Grealish of the Euros.
Yeah.
Everybody wants him to play, and once again, it's Mount who is public enemy number one, really. But I do have to admit, I don't like to go too reactionary or strong with my opinions, though I am aware that I can sometimes just do that anyway. But I don't see what I know that Mason Mount is a good player, and I've not really got much of a problem with him starting for England the majority of the time. But it almost feels like he's got the same privileges as Harry Kane without doing any of the work that Kane's done to actually earn that. Kane's, consistently scored goals for years. He's never subbed. Mount seemingly has never subbed and has put in a handful of decent appearances. I think I remember you saying on Friday, you was like, well, you know what? Foden's never really done it perhaps for England just yet. But then I thought, has Mount? Why is he an automatic starter? Do you think it's something that we don't see in training and Southgate's like every time my gamble's going to pay off here?
Yeah, and I think actually what happened at the Euros is that Mason Mount was he was pinged, wasn't he? He was pinged
Yeah.
for that after that Scotland game, and it meant that he couldn't play the
Wasn't
Czech
wasn't
game.
wasn't Foden pinged as well? Or
I
did
don't think so. I think Poden had been dropped. Poden. I think Foden had been dropped, and or he was injured or something. Because remember, he started the first two games, and it was all said Foden is the man. This time, it's this young player who's going to
yeah.
kind of do it for England. And I don't think Guardiola doesn't play Foden in central midfield for Manchester City, probably because he's got incredible players there anyway. But he trusts him in that wide forward role, and I don't think the players at England suit him playing that wide forward role either, because he's got a Haaland or whoever plays on those other sides as well. I think it's a much different side, and it's a brave thing to play Foden in that centre midfield. But when he's not been doing it for so long for club, you kind of do see why he doesn't get that spot. But I would still say, I think chasing a game, having him in that midfield with his qualities, I think that can be a big improvement. The worry is, I think what Southgate does with Mount is that he does a lot of good work off the ball in terms of pressing and being in the right position to receive a pass. Maybe that's just something Foden is not doing with this England side at the moment. And yeah, it's a bit of a mystery, but I can, in a way, slightly go, well, there is something else we're not seeing to this. And it's not just the fact that Mount's the teacher's pet or anything. It's just
That's
there's
fine.
something not quite there.
But we watching on football, and when you follow your club, it's not like you never see a player who does a lot of the stuff that goes unnoticed. You do notice these things. It broadly goes unnoticed in terms of if you're down the boozer and watching the game and like you're just having a chat and everything like that, you're not going to notice somebody doing a lot of work off the ball. But I mean, yeah, he does that for England. That's fine. But should we not be looking to be more in control when we have the ball, or we're not going to get it without players like that? It's just difficult. You would think that a midfield of Rice and Bellingham would have enough legs in them to allow us to have Foden to carry the ball. But I don't remember anyone that entire game carrying it at all. If we look at the strike force, Saka was muted, Sterling was muted, Kane the same as well. I would say I don't think there's any over sixes in terms of 8 of 10 performances that were given across the field, but especially up front.
No, I'd agree with that. And even when you could substitutes Grealish and Grealish and Henderson came on at the same time. Even when Grealish had the ball, it felt a bit. I remember when he came on against Germany in the Euros. I think his first 3 touches, he kind of lost the ball or didn't really do anything with it, and the expectation was so high that give it to Grealish. And when he got the ball, it was like at that exact moment, he just didn't quite know what to do with it, or the pass wasn't on, or he couldn't run at players, and it felt like he didn't use the players around him when he did come on, because it's kind of like that thing now of, all right, then you've kind of got to double up on him, but it's kind of a man and a half that teams put on him now when he comes on for England, because he is that difference maker. And I guess you look at the rest of the subs that are possible, and like I say, Henderson came on, Rashford came on for Saka. Couldn't really say he did a great deal either. But you look at the players who weren't used by England, because there was 2 subs still left to make at that point as well. No Alexander-Arnold, no Foden, obviously, and no Callum Wilson. Would kind of your Alexander-Arnold, for me, that's when you bring him on when you're like, another team is tiring and you want to put the ball into the box with his incredible delivery and make something happen. Maybe that was the time to bring him on for when England kind of, it wouldn't out of the realm of possibilities they could have lost that game, which I think is what we go back to of a safe option at this point as well. Southgate will always pick the safe option because he's learned and observed that that's how you win international tournaments.
And it's not really the time to make a gamble, is it? You're not losing, you're drawing. It's the middle game of the tournament, of the group stage, and you've already got a win. He would have seen the Wales result earlier in the day as well, which just puts England in a really strong position. And he probably just thought, why would I even risk this?
And in that game as well, USA were the ones that were under pressure. England weren't. England racked up their 6 goals. They were the ones that were top of the group. They're still top of the group by now as well, and should be going through as top of the group winners. So really, if England do go through the top of the group, what's been the problem? I get the performance wasn't great, but I know it. It was everyone's Friday night, and we're all backseat managers and have our own thing and our own ideas with it too. But I think in isolation, disappointing. USA were up for it. Could have been a bit braver, but I kind of understand why he wasn't.
Yeah, I think the Friday night thing does play into it a little bit, actually, but then that's something that Southgate can't consider. It would be so stupid for him to think, well, it's Friday night, let's play strikers.
Let's roll the dice. Let's get that extra point in. We can, it's 7 o'clock kickoff, so we've got that extra quick hour as well in there. That extra dangerous hour for boozing as well after the game, which is never a good idea.
Of course, and if it were to be done on that logic, imagine how bad performances would be for England if they ever played on a Monday. Imagine how bad that Iran one would have been. That was Monday at midday. Maybe that's why
it was so good, and that would have been so good and sensible then. Maybe if it was just like, oh my god, it's a Saturday night England game, like just the crazy formation England would have to play. Then he'd be like, well, my hands are tied. It's the calendar. I can't help it. It's Saturday night live.
The next game is on Tuesday. It comes against Wales, and we have been very sort of scared of this fixture since the groups were announced so many months ago now, and now it's come round, and I don't feel scared of it anymore because I watched Wales versus Iran on Friday, and that was bad for Wales.
Yeah.
They were really poor. They were really, really poor. Iran 2-0 victors there. Two sort of late-ish goals and, well, one very late goal. A red card for Wayne Hennessy as well. He'll miss the game. And it just doesn't look like it's going to happen for Wales, he says, before they play England on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I think for England, from an England perspective, again, Wales need to beat us by quite a lot of goals to be able to go through, don't they? And you can't imagine that would happen.
No, it had to be some sort of freak result in terms of England get a player sent off really early, or something like someone loses their heads, or just some like football happens to England. But yeah, England will go through if they avoid a 3-goal defeat to Wales. I think it's 3.
Yeah.
Maybe even 4. Again, this isn't is this maths, but England will go through top of the group if they equal or better either team's result in the Iran USA game, or they just beat Wales. So
Right.
yeah.
So does that? Are we going to go even further and look at the groups? Is it Group A where we've got the? Let's have a look at the table for Group A.
I
Netherlands,
think
Ecuador,
I
Senegal,
think
Qatar.
yeah, it's still all kind of, apart from Qatar, still quite open in that
It
group
is
as well,
really.
isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm guessing, yeah, Senegal will play Ecuador. Oh, mate, that'll be next Sunday. That'll be a week from when we're recording. But before we get there, do you think Southgate's going to make any changes for this Wales game? What type of game do you think it will be? Do you think it's going to be like? I think it could be almost Belgium at 2018 World Cup. He may make wholesale changes, knowing that the team probably won't get beaten by that many goals. But imagine if he did and they did.
I
So
know, yeah.
he probably can't do that just because we aren't technically through.
I saw Joe Cole's team earlier, and it was a bit mad. I think he picked the same back four. He kept Pickford in goal. I think he said he picked Walker because Walker needs minutes, and I'm like, okay, that's maybe not a bad idea. Obviously, he
Yeah,
put Phil Foden in for Mason Mount,
yeah,
as is just the one. He took Jude Bellingham out of the side, and I was like, I don't think he needs to be taken out of the side for Henderson, if I'm honest. I think Bellingham's fine to stay.
yeah,
I don't think he's going to get rid of Mason Mount, if I'm honest. Even like, because the option is rest and rotate, or you go strong. And I think he's going to keep faith, and I think it'll be the same England side because you can make those 5 subs. I think it'll start strong. If England are winning by 2 at half time, I think we'll probably see Harry Kane taken out the side. We may see Carter Walker given a few minutes as well, and then the litany of subs kind of can continue then. But yeah, I think with you, I've been disappointed in Wales. I think they've got the 2 luxury players who just don't look like they're at that level anymore. They've both played 90 minutes in
they'll,
the
they'll
last
play
week or
90 minutes
so.
again. They'll play 90 minutes again. This is probably their goodbye to the national team.
Most likely, yeah. But then they've played like a period of time when they had 10 men as well, and it's Ward obviously who's actually been quite good for Leicester. I don't know how much of it is he's doing rather than Leicester have just improved a lot defensively over the period. But a bit surprising he wasn't even starting for Wales. But I think it'll be comfortable enough. I could see a 2-0 England probably going through, and then that means going through top of the group. So all that kind of stress is taken away over what happens if it's second place or whatever. And the Iran USA game is kind of, if it starts going well for England, I'd be very interested in looking at what's going on in that game, because I think there's so much on the line, and USA have got to go for Iran. Iran are in the driving seat now, and that is very tasty.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be a good game, really. I couldn't really predict who would go through because obviously we smashed Iran, but the USA, ground us down, got a 0-0. But the USA drew
Maybe
against
it's the
Wales,
US.
and
Maybe it's the USA in terms of they've grown into the tournament a bit more. It's do or die for them. They need to beat Iran. Maybe it'll just be, as it did with England, they upped their game, and the players actually turned up for this one.
Yeah, that's likely it. I think for the Wales game, England are looking at probably the same lineup again. I would be surprised if he didn't pop Phil Foden in for Mason Mount, though. I would just be surprised if he didn't. And again, I wouldn't be against Kyle Walker, but finishing the Joe Cole team, I've just got it up in front of me here. He's dropped Harry Kane, which I don't think will happen. I
Oh
don't
God, yeah,
understand.
I forgot about that.
I don't understand the drop Harry Kane calls. It's just like
I
he
think it's
can't
because he's
score
had
everything all the time.
he had the injury, didn't he? Which I think has been the big talking point of, he should, be given a rest. I don't think it's drop. I think it's rest. But
Yeah,
this kind of happened last time. Like he set up at least one goal in the first game from memory. So it's not
yeah,
like he's
yeah.
playing bad. I think
He set
there
up
was a
two.
chance. Yeah, except two. He had a chance in the USA game where really I'd have really expected him to score the header from set piece. I think it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, you kind of go, oh, is he? It's a fine line with Harry Kane, isn't it? Because it's kind of like you keep playing him, he's going to score at some point. But even if he looks a bit groggy in some, like if he'd have got one against Iran, no one would have been even mentioning this, would they? And even though he's had the knock and all that, I think he'll stick with. I think he'll stick with the team. Maybe there'll be one change, but while it's not guaranteed, I can't see Southgate changing it personally. And I don't think he should because he's got the five subs to use.
If we're mirroring Euro 2020, I can't even remember the third game of that group because we had an impressive start against Croatia. We had an impressive start against Iran this time. Then 0-0 draw in derbies. How did that group end up? I can't even remember.
England won it by beating Czech in the third
Oh
game,
yeah,
and it was when was it Grealish that set up Saka because Saka was the big
yeah.
selection, and Grealish started as well,
Grealish started. Yeah,
and that meant that because Mount and no, sorry, it was Sterling who scored because that it was Mount and Foden who weren't available, so it was Grealish and Saka that came into the already settled side. And I don't think there's
yeah.
any injury concerns for England, so I don't see a reason why you change it. I think he'll play because I think we were quite in praise of Mason Mount. We thought he was neat and tidy in that first game, and there's always got to be a reason why England don't win. If they don't win games, well, it's because of this. Well, sometimes it's just because you can't win every game and you can't be incredible throughout a tournament. It just doesn't work like that, does it?
No, you're probably right. But your prediction, I think you've gone 2-0.
Yeah.
I'll go for 4-1.
Wow.
I need something
that
exciting
was
in my life.
that was your eyes just roll back in your head then, and anything could have come out then, couldn't it?
I was worried that I wasn't going to say anything. I think 4 and 1 were the only numbers that I could remember. They were the only ones
Like a
I could remember.
tombola.
Yeah. So what's a number? Let's just touch on the rest of the tournament then. Really, I saw a little bit of Canada versus Croatia earlier. I thought Canada looked really good, but they lost
Yeah.
4-1. So I think that's them out. Croatia building up a bit of speed now. The Germany and Spain game will have just kicked off as we're
Well,
recording
yeah,
this
yeah.
now. So by the time the pod comes out, Germany could be out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We had Costa Rica with a bit of an upset over Japan, even though you felt like,
Yeah.
having only watched the highlights of the Japan Germany game, it felt like Germany missed a lot of chances in that game.
Oh
And
yeah.
there is problems in that Germany team, of course there is, and Japan capitalised on it. But I found it weird in the preview to the Costa Rica game. All the pundits were like, "This is the best Japanese team we've ever seen," and it was like, I get that they've beaten Germany and it was a bit smash and grab and they may have played well, but to say that's the best Japan team we've ever seen, maybe it's like the least star-studded I can remember. I don't think they were like an outstanding side. Just always what the Japanese side end up being is really technical, working hard and knowing the plan. I think they've just kind
Yeah,
of got a
yeah.
good result. And but we've had Belgium lose to Morocco today as well.
I
And
know. Shocking that.
apparently they looked really poor from by all accounts.
I only saw the last 10 minutes or so, so I did get to see the second goal. But yeah,
Mm.
what a result! Since we last spoke as well, Brazil have arrived in style.
Hmm.
Two lovely goals for Richarlison, one particularly lovely, and Portugal beat Ghana 3-2 as well in a score that sounds more
Mm.
dramatic than it actually was. I think. I mean, Ronaldo got his penalty. He's the first person ever to score in 5 different World Cups.
Yeah. I saw that. I think Perisic. I think it was for Croatia. He obviously, because Croatia don't have any new players, they just carry on with the same ones. He's the first player to assist in 5 consecutive tournaments. I
Yeah,
saw that earlier as
Jesus
well, and it's like,
Christ.
yeah, he just doesn't stop, does he, Perisic? But yeah, it's kind of like even some of the weird games. Like I watched Saudi Arabia, Poland yesterday. Saudi Arabia were really good.
Yeah.
Like I was kind of surprised by it still of like how well they've played, and they go into the last game going they could really be the team that finished second in that group or even first, because that's probably the most open group. Like everyone's still got something to play for. No one's out of it yet, as far as I can see. Mexico, Saudi Arabia is going to kind of be if either team win, they're probably through.
What about France? They've broken the curse. Kylian Mbappe
Broken.
killing it.
Yeah. They've broken the curse. As we say, they've got through to the round, and that's a particularly interesting one for England because if England, if England do get through their group and they do get through their first knockout tie, they will play the winners of that group. And I got it down as Denmark. I mean, I watched a bit of the Denmark France game, and it seemed like there was a lot of chances coming for both sides. So two high quality teams. You'd maybe, I wouldn't even want to start thinking about predicting like that game so far in the future. But that is kind of one England kind of fans have to keep their eye on because I think the winner of the France group get quite an easy tie. I do have a wall chart in my spare room as I recall this, but I've since moved it. So so that's not very useful to me now. But yeah, I did have a quick look earlier of like, okay, who are they playing? And I think it's the runner up from the Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, Poland fun kind of thing.
Oh,
So
it used to be.
one of those teams could be playing France or Denmark if they both go through.
It used to be fun when you'd look at the wall chart ahead and be like, well, if we got there, it'd be amazing anyway. It'd be shit to just go to the quarterfinals to France. Like, come on.
But
But
that's kind of what we've come to over the last few years. Of we're in uncharted territory where a quarterfinal exit now is going to be really disappointing if it were to happen. When a couple of
yeah.
years ago we were just like, God, give me a knockout on penalties. you know what? It was just that's what we craved for years, wasn't it? And now we're here. Unfortunately, there's a lot more expectation on England because they have a track record of going far in tournaments now, and it's kind of like it weighs you down slightly.
Yeah. I don't think there's much else of note. Argentina did pull a win back. They're in the W column now. Messi bringing sort of his tournament and that country's tournament to life. So, as you say, they're a potential opponent too.
They are indeed, and that's going to be a very interesting one. Kind of want Argentina to finish second in that group, so they have to play the winner of the France Denmark one. That would be a lovely old job. That would be definite. I'm not doing anything today. I'm watching this because I've already started to have a look, and it's if England were to get through first in their group, I think they'd play Sunday night, as we were saying earlier. And I'm just not prepared for like going to the pub on a Sunday night and watching an England game because it's just so rough to think of already, isn't it? But it's why we do it and love it. I guess when it comes around, I would be up and ready for it.
Yeah, of course. Well, hopefully the lads are up and ready for it on Tuesday night. Thank you everybody for listening. I don't think there's much else to say, Nick.
No, not at all.
Peace out.